to my channel. My name is Kayla if you are new here. So this outfit is something you'll have seen in a total of 3 videos. I believe this one is going up second, so the next one I'm going to be wearing this sweater too, so yeah. But I am pre-filming, and this is a series that I thought of, and I don't know if anybody's thought of it before. It is my own take on design your own eyeshadow palette, but I want to theme it around geek and nerd culture, so video games, comic books, things like that is really what's going to be the focus of this. And I did design the template myself in Photoshop. I have taken images that were meant for free use from either the game developer or somebody who was sharing it on Reddit, so those are going to be linked down below. So I did use images, which is something I don't think a lot of people do when they're designing these palettes, but I really wanted to showcase what I was thinking would look good or look cool. And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense having a video game and then makeup combined, but because I'm kind of a weirdo and I just thought this was really fun to do for me. I just spent a night doing this. I was like, I would put this here, I would put that there. And I'm going to explain the title, I'm going to explain the images, and then I'm going to also explain the colors and why I named them as such. So, I love this game. It is Bioshock, and well, all of them. There are 3 games. It's over 10 years old now. They came out with a 10th anniversary edition not too long ago, and my whole sleeve, for anybody who is wondering, is Bioshock, so I love this game, this game series, and I might ramble a little bit if I don't make total sense when I'm trying to explain why I named something. I'm not going to try to go too much into the lore because this video would be like an hour long, if not longer, but I hope I explain things clearly enough as to why I labeled them that way. And hopefully I don't get flagged for copyright because I'm not making any money on this video. This video isn't monetized or anything, so yay. First, we're going to start with the cover. So the cover art I found from someone on Reddit, and they shared it publicly, and it's a photo edit of a couple of different images, I think, but it showcases 2 different cities. So one city is in the sky and one city is underwater, and Rapture, which was the setting for the first 2 Bioshock games, is underwater, and then Columbia, which takes place in the 3rd, is the city in the 3rd game. And so I called it Infinite Rapture. The 3rd installment of the series is called Bioshock Infinite, so it's kind of fitting. Now if we go down below and we look at the palette itself, I used an image that was shared by, I believe, 2K Gaming, which is now Irrational Games, and it was designed also to be a desktop screensaver, if you will. And so I haven't done any editing to the image. That's supposed to be a look of under the city into Rapture. Now, the top row is all based on the first 2 games, and then the bottom row is based on the 3rd. Because the first 2 games take place in the same sort of setting, I didn't want to have, 3 rows. I didn't want to do that. Here we go. The first eyeshadow we're going to talk about is Lighthouse. So this is a yellow color, and because lighthouses kind of give off that yellowish glow, I thought it would be a good representation of it. Lighthouses are also a really big theme in the series. When you first land in the first Bioshock, the opening scene is a plane crash lands and you see a lighthouse and you swim to the lighthouse. And so there are also tons of lighthouses in the 3rd one without spoiling anything. And so it's very important in the lore of the game, so I thought it would make sense to have it as a color, especially the first one. Next up is a teal, and I called it Rapture because the color scheme for most of the first 2 games in the city underwater Rapture is teal. It's teal, it's green, it's blue-green, it's a lot of blues and greens. So this is really fitting, I think, and it's a shade that, I don't know, personally I don't see in a lot of eyeshadow palettes. Recently, anyways. There's like the Flamingo palette where I think there's something close, but in general it's a shade that not many people would see, and it's a really cool color. Next up is Eve, and so Eve is something that helps fuel you along in the game. It is a blue color. It's usually, I think, a little bit darker blue, but it tends to glow a bright blue, which is why it is bright blue in the eyeshadow palette. And so this essentially powers up your superpowers, we'll say. They're called plasmids, but essentially you're altering your character's DNA so that they can either have like a swarm of bees come out of their hands, or lightning bolts, or telekinesis, things like that. And the next shade is Atom. So Atom is what allows your character to alter their genetic code in order to be able to use Eve, essentially. And so it shows up in kind of a red casing or a red container a lot of the time in the game, and it's harvested from a sea slug, and it's kind of what made it was an integral part of Rapture and how things kind of came to be and what happened throughout the whole game. Next up is Little Sister. So this is a gray color, and the reason why I made it gray is because these little girls they're either orphans or they were kidnapped, and this monster of a man basically decides that he's going to alter their genetic code so that they can be a recycle plant for Atom. So if someone dies, they poke them with a stick, a needle, and then they're able to draw it into sort of what looks like a baby bottle, and then they can digest the Atom, which is super dark. I mean, they're a little Atom recycling plant, and they walk around with a huge protector, but it's still, it's tainted, and they really change these children without their consent, right? So that's why it's great, because they're not the way children should be, basically. They have lost a little bit of their innocence. Next up, the second row is all based on the third game, Bioshock Infinite. And the first color I put in was called Columbia. Now, the orange doesn't really have a super significance to me. It was more so that you're in the sky, the sun is close to you, and it's just a very bright setting compared to the other two games. The other two games are very dark and kind of moody, whereas Columbia is bright and it's in the sky and it looks beautiful. There's a lot wrong with it, but it looks great. And so you're walking through the city and you're like, oh wow, this is really nice. And then progressively the story gets darker despite the bright setting. Next up is Songbird. So there is a protector of one of the main characters in the game, and it is this massive bird creature, and it protects the girl. Well, when it's docile, its eyes are kind of like a yellowy color, and when it's angry, its eyes are red. So Songbird is docile in the palette with this kind of muted yellow, hint of green kind of color. Next up is Elizabeth, and she's the character that Songbird is trying to protect. And she's a woman who has been caged most of her life and just wants to be free, and a gentleman ends up trying to rescue her. More for his own personal gain, but she gets rescued, sort of. Again, I don't want to go into it too much. But Elizabeth wears a lot of blues and a lot of dark navy colors, and so I thought this was kind of a really good interpretation of her character with the color scheme. Next up is Booker, the gentleman who is trying to rescue Elizabeth, and he's got a debt, and in order to repay the debt, he has to get the girl. So he has to get Elizabeth to repay whatever debt he has. And so he's kind of an interesting character in that he's kind of plain. There's a lot to his backstory, but you have to really kind of dig into it. And so I just wanted to have him as kind of like a light brown color. Last off, I did want to have a black in the palette because I was also thinking of functionality when I designed this. Yes, there's a lot of bright colors, but at the same time you want to be able to kind of soften some things up maybe. Or, you know, make a smoky eye or something like that. And so Murder of Crows is in the third game, and it is an ability where you can summon crows and they will essentially gang up on an enemy of yours and they'll help take care of the job. And so crows are black, and so this is kind of the reasoning of that naming. It's also my favorite upgrade in the game, so I figured I would put that in there. And that's the palette, so let me know what you thought. If you're interested in something like this moving forward, I would like to do more of these. This was a lot of fun, and again, this was kind of a self-gratifying one because I wanted to open with something I already really loved because that was the inspiration behind it. But If there's anybody else who really likes this game and really likes makeup, let me know if you liked it. Thanks so much, everyone, and hopefully I will see you next time.